Right now, we are kind of in the dog days of the offseason. There isn't a whole lot going on, despite the fact that there is still some significant free agents out there. For the most part, I feel like the majority of teams are probably done making their significant moves, so in today's video, I want to talk about the offseason that each team has had and give them a grade on how I think they've done so far. One thing I do want to clarify before we get into this video, I'm not taking the draft into consideration because the second I do that, then I'd be getting comments from Giroux Fan 28 asking why the Flyers didn't get an A because they got a steal with Connor McClellan in the 6th round. In all seriousness though, we haven't seen any of these prospects play a single NHL game, so factoring that into a team's grade for the offseason I feel like is kind of pointless. Before we go any further, be sure to go follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you want to talk hockey somewhere other than YouTube. Links to those will be down below in the description, and of course if you guys are new to this channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And now let's begin. Starting off with the Anaheim Ducks, I'm going to give them a grade of a C. They didn't do a whole lot. They brought back Derek Grant, which was a move that I liked. They signed free agent defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk. I'm pretty skeptical about that contract, however. We'll have to wait and see how that signing ages, but for the most part, the Ducks have been pretty quiet. The Arizona Coyotes, I'm going to give them a grade of an F. You can say I'm being a little bit too harsh here, but they lost Taylor Hall for absolutely nothing after giving up a lot of assets to bring him in. On top of that, you have all the behind the scenes stuff, them having to forfeit draft picks for illegal testing of prospects, the whole Mitchell Miller situation. They've just been a complete disaster. Moving along, we have the Boston Bruins. I'm going to give them a grade of a C-. They got worse, losing Torrey Krug to St. Louis. They're probably not bringing back Zdeno Chara. Their blue line definitely took a hit. The only reason I don't have them at like a D or a D+ is because I really like the signing of Craig Smith up front. I like what he brings, and I think they got him on a really good contract. The Buffalo Sabres, call me crazy, but I'm giving them a grade of an A+. They signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year contract, they flipped Marcus Johansson for Eric Stahl, and just the other day, Jack Eichel comes out and says the moves that the Sabres have been making have him excited for the season, and that right there is the most important thing. The Calgary Flames, I'm going to give them a grade of a B+. Yes, they added a lot, but they also lost a good bit as well, with TJ Brodie signing with the Maple Leafs. I think they're going to miss him on the back end. Travis Hamonic probably isn't coming back. That being said though, when it comes to a team like the Calgary Flames, you take that swap any day of the week. Losing Hamonic and Brodie and adding Markstrom and Tanev. I mean, Markstrom is like the best goalie Calgary has had since Kiprusoff. The Carolina Hurricanes, I'm going to give them a grade of a C. They didn't really do anything too crazy. Signed depth players like Jesper Foss and Joakim Ryan. Yeah, sure, they lost Trevor Van Riemsdyk and they're probably not bringing back Sami Vatanen, but for a team like Carolina, they have so many good defensemen that you can easily afford to lose those guys. Next, we have the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm going to give them a grade of a D+. The Brendan Saad for Nikita Zadorov trade is still a little bit of a head scratcher. They signed depth players like Matthias Janmark and Lucas Wallmark, but those guys really aren't going to move the needle for them at all. They lost Corey Crawford to free agency. As of right now, they haven't brought in anybody to replace him. It's hard to imagine they win too many games with the tandem of Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia, but hey, they came out and said that they're rebuilding to their fans, so maybe that's the plan, to not win too many games. Moving along, now we have the Colorado Avalanche. I'm going to give them a grade of an A. I think they've had a great offseason. They traded Zadorov for Brendan Saad. Saad just gives them even more scoring depth now behind guys like Rantanen, Landeskog, and McKinnon, and they traded away a couple of picks to bring in Devon Toews, so they pretty much replaced Zadorov with Devon Toews, which is a significant upgrade. This team was already really good. They got even better, so I would definitely say their offseason has been a big success. The Columbus Blue Jackets, I'm giving them a grade of a B+. The fact that they were able to seemingly sell high on Josh Anderson after a season in which he had 1 goal in 26 games, you have to love that for them, bringing in Max Domi in a pick and signing Domi to an extension. Also, I really like the addition of Mikko Koivu, a veteran presence, a real solid defensive forward, just giving them more depth down the middle. The Dallas Stars, I'm going to give them a grade of a C. They've been extremely quiet this offseason. They re-signed Andre Sekera, which is cool. It is nice that they were able to bring back Anton Khudobin and not lose him to free agency. That was obviously pretty important for them. They lost a guy like Matthias Janmark in free agency. I don't know if that's going to hurt them a whole lot. Corey Perry is still a free agent, and I'd like it for Dallas if they brought him back. Overall, I don't really think Dallas got any worse this offseason, but I definitely wouldn't say they got any better either. Next up, we have the Wings. I'm going to give them a grade of a B+. I've made an entire video talking about their offseason so far. I really like a lot of the moves Steve Yzerman has made. Just a lot of low-risk, high-reward signings. Guys like Vlad Nemestikov, Thomas Greiss, Bobby Ryan, Troy Stetcher, John Merrill. These are all guys he can look to flip at a later date as well for draft picks and younger assets. Also, I'm a big fan of the Mantha extension. I think Yzerman got a really good deal there too. Moving along now, next up we have the Edmonton Oilers. I'm also going to give them a B+. They added some nice scoring depth with guys like Kyle Turris, Dominic Cahoon, and also bringing Jesse Puljujarvi back over. It's nice they were able to get that done. And on the back end, they signed Tyson Barrie to a contract with a very fair cap hit for what we know he's capable of doing, and if it doesn't work out, well, it's only a one-year deal, so it's a really low-risk, high-reward move. The only real complaint I'd have about the Oilers offseason so far is their choice to bring back Mike Smith. I didn't really get that, especially with how many goaltenders were available to start the offseason, but aside from that, I think they've done a pretty good job. The Florida Panthers, I'm going to give them a D+. I was going back and forth between that and a C-. They have definitely been one of the more busy teams this offseason. Their roster looks a lot different than it did a couple of months ago. I really like the Hornqvist trade for them. They traded the pick to bring in Marcus Nudvar. That's a low-risk move that I think could pay off. The rest of the moves they made, though, I'm not sure about. I look back to when they traded Vincent Trocheck, they brought in Lucas Wallmark and Eric Haula. They already lost Wallmark, and Haula is still a UFA. They're probably not going to bring him back, so they pretty much have no roster players to show for trading Trocheck. I don't really think that's a good look. They already lost Dadonov. I would say Hoffman's as good as gone as well. Those are two pretty big losses. They did sign guys like Hinostroza, Carter Verhaeghe, Radko Gudas, and Alex Wenberg. Like, they've done a lot. I just find it really hard to believe that they didn't get any worse, so that's why I gave them a low grade. The Los Angeles Kings, a real quiet offseason from them, which makes sense because they are rebuilding. I'm going to give them a grade of a C+. The one move that they did make, acquiring Lias Andersson for a late second round pick, I like that. Taking a chance on a player who is still young, who was a top 10 pick, just back in the 2017 draft, I think that's real smart for a rebuilding team, so that's kind of where the plus comes from. The Minnesota Wild, I'm going to give them a C-. I just don't really know what direction they're going. They traded Eric Stahl for Marcus Johansson. They traded away a young player in Luke Kunin, who just had, I think, 16 goals this past season, for Nick Bonino. That's the type of move I feel like a team trying to compete for a Stanley Cup would make. I do like that they traded away Devin Dubnyk, but they also traded away Ryan Donato, who's another relatively young player with some upside. Again, this is a team that just really confuses me. It seems like Bill Guerin should be looking towards the future, and it doesn't really seem like he's doing that a whole lot. The Montreal Canadiens, I'm giving them a B+. This is another team that I actually made an entire video on, talking about the offseason that they've had. And if you watch that video, you would know I'm pretty high on what this team has done. Signing Toffoli to a really good contract, getting Carey Price, a backup who just had a really good season in Jake Allen, trading for and signing Joel Edmondson. He's a defenseman who fits their identity. He's tough to play against. The Max Domi trade is the big question mark here. I feel like they definitely overpaid, and if Josh Anderson can't bounce back from the season he just had, it's going to look real bad on Montreal. But if he does bounce back and he gets back to that 20 goal range and it's just a power forward that plays the game with an edge and is tough to play against, I don't think you're going to hear many people complaining. The Nashville Predators, I'm going to give them a grade of a C. They lost a good bit. Mikael Granlund probably isn't coming back. Craig Smith signed in Boston, but I do feel like they did a pretty good job of making up for the losses of those two guys. They signed a lot of depth players, Mark Borowiecki and Matt Benning on the back end, Nick Cousins and Brad Richardson up front, and the Bonino for Kunin trade. Yeah, they're going to miss Bonino, who's a real solid player for them, but I like the addition of Luke Kunin on the wing. They get younger in making that trade, and again, he just scored 16 goals last season. The New Jersey Devils, I'm going to give them a B+. This is another team that I've made an entire video on, talking about their offseason, previewing them heading into this upcoming season, so check that out if you have not already. If you already watched that, then you would know I'm a pretty big fan of what the Devils have done this offseason. I think they got an absolute steal, only having to give up a 5th round pick for Ryan Murray. They picked up Andreas Johnsson from the Maple Leafs for Joey Anderson. That could turn out to be a real good move if Andreas Johnsson can get back to being that 20 goal scorer on the wing that he was in the 2018-19 season. And of course they signed Crawford, so they went from a tandem of Blackwood and Schneider to Blackwood and Crawford, which is a significant upgrade for sure, especially if Crawford can play like he did this past season. I think the Devils have gotten a lot better, and they still have some money, so you never know, they might not be done making moves. The New York Islanders, I'm going to give them a D. They traded away Devin Taves because they just couldn't afford to bring him back. They signed Brian Pullock, but he's going to be a UFA in just 2 years now, so that could definitely hurt them down the line. Lou Lamoriello did kind of catch a break though, with Johnny Boychuk being forced to retire due to that eye injury, so his cap hit is going to be coming off of the books. That's a lot of extra money now to re-sign Matt Barzal, but they still haven't gotten that done yet, so just basing this off of everything that they've done so far, I don't think they've had a great offseason at all. The New York Rangers, I'll go with a C for them. Haven't really done a whole lot. Obviously they drafted Lafreniere, but we aren't taking the draft into consideration for these grades. They were able to re-sign Tony DeAngelo and Ryan Strome, which is good. They signed Jack Johnson as a UFA. I don't really know about that signing. Jack Johnson was pretty bad over the past couple seasons for Pittsburgh. The Ottawa Senators, I'm going to give them a grade of a B. I like the addition of Evgeny Dadonov. I think they got him at a fair price. He was fantastic for Florida over the past couple of seasons. I like the addition of Matt Murray and net. They didn't have to give up a lot to bring him in at all. The contract they signed him to is pretty expensive, but if he can bounce back, which I'm sure he can, then you won't hear too many people complaining about it. Also, I really like them taking a chance on Alex Galchenyuk. It's a low risk, high reward move. If he can get back to being even like a 15 to 20 goal scorer, I think they're going to be happy with this signing. And if he sucks, well, again, it's a low risk move, a cheap 1-year contract. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't really matter. Overall, I'd say the Ottawa Senators have had a pretty good offseason. The Philadelphia Flyers, I'm going to give them a grade of a C. Real quiet offseason. I would say the biggest news coming out of Philly so far has been Matt Niskanen retiring. After that, they signed Eric Gustafsson, who I don't think will be quite as good for them as Niskanen was, but it's still a viable replacement. They also lost a couple of depth guys, Derek Rank going back to Anaheim, Tyler Pitlick and Nate Thompson, but I don't really think that's something that's going to affect them a whole lot. The Pittsburgh Penguins, I settled on a C-. I was pretty close to giving them a D+ though. I'm not a huge fan of the offseason that they've had so far. I do like the addition of Kasperi Kapanen, albeit I think they overpaid to bring him in. It might hurt them a little bit down the line. I don't know what they were thinking bringing in Mike Matheson for Patrick Hornqvist. They traded away Matt Murray, so Tristan Jarry's their full-time starter now, which was probably the smart move. Tristan Jarry was an all-star for the Penguins this past season, and they signed Cody Ceci, which is kind of just meh. He was pretty bad for Toronto. We'll see if he can be better for Pittsburgh. The San Jose Sharks, I'm going to give them a grade of a D. I've already talked about them a ton this offseason and their choice to go out and get Devin Dubnyk. I certainly have my doubts about a Jones-Dubnyk tandem. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that works out. The only reason they're not like a D- is because I actually like the addition of Ryan Donato. The St. Louis Blues, I'm going to give them a grade of a C-. It obviously hurts losing Alex Pietrangelo. He was their captain. He's been one of the best defensemen in the NHL for a long time, but they did go out and sign Torrey Krug, which I think will soften the blow of losing Pietrangelo. Obviously, it's still a downgrade, but it's definitely better than nothing. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm going to give them a grade of a C. I like that they brought back Luke Shen and Pat Maroon. They were able to get a deal done with Sergachev, which is good, but now they have like negative cap space to re-sign Anthony Cirelli and Eric Chernak. It's going to be difficult. Somebody's going to have to go to free up some cap space. It'll be interesting to see which player that is. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going to give them a B. I think Kyle Dubas did a pretty good job considering he didn't really have a lot of cap space to work with. Got a fantastic package for Kasperi Kapanen, signed TJ Brody, who's going to be a welcome addition to their top four and probably be Morgan Riley's best D partner he's ever had. They got Joe Thornton, whose presence and veteran leadership I think is going to be really important for them. They signed some other depth guys, Jimmy Vesey, they got Joey Anderson for Andreas Janssen, and they signed players like Wayne Simmons and Zach Bogosian, who will make them tougher to play against in the playoffs, and that was definitely something Toronto had to address. The Vancouver Canucks, I'm going to give them a grade of a C because I don't know if they got better, I don't know if they got worse. Yes, they definitely lost a lot. Markstrom, Levo, Tanev, Stetcher, Toffoli, but I do feel like they did a pretty good job of replacing some of those guys. I think one of the more underrated additions of the offseason is Vancouver taking advantage of Vegas's cap situation and bringing in Nate Schmidt. Me personally, I would rather have Nate Schmidt on my team than Tanev and Stetcher. They got Braden Holtby on what in my opinion is a fair deal. He's a guy who's won a Vezina before, he's won a Jennings, he's won a Stanley Cup. Yes, he had a bad season with Washington, but if he can bounce back, then this is a good contract. Another thing, they extended Virtanen, and if he can play in the top 6 and score 20 goals, I think that makes up for losing Toffoli. The Vegas Golden Knights, I'm going to give them a B+. I was going to give them an A. I mean, they signed one of the best defensemen in the NHL in Alex Pietrangelo, but they did have some cap casualties because of that. They had to trade away Paul Stastny, unload his cap, and also Nate Schmidt. Those were two pretty valuable assets for Vegas, but you definitely take Pietrangelo over having those two guys any day of the week. The Washington Capitals, I'm going to give them a B-. They lost Radko Gudas, but they were able to sign Justin Schultz. If he can bounce back, that could turn out to be a real good signing. And then of course they signed Henrik Lundqvist to come in and share the net with Ilya Samsonov, and I think that can be a real solid tandem. Lundqvist is a fantastic veteran goalie for Samsonov to learn from as well. And finally we have the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to give them a grade of a B. They addressed one of their biggest needs in getting a second line center, bringing Paul Stastny back, somebody who played very well for Winnipeg the first time around. I think they could definitely still use another top 4 defenseman, but they brought back Dylan DeMello, they signed Derek Forbort for some depth back there, and they haven't traded Patrick Laine yet, and I think that's a good thing. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Those are my grades for every single NHL team on how I think they've done so far this offseason. You don't have to take the grades too seriously. I more so just kind of wanted to quickly talk about what every team has done so far and just kind of give you guys my quick thoughts on every team and what they've done. Be sure to let me know down below in the comment section what grade you would give your favorite team on how you think they've done so far this offseason. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all in the next video.